Hi guys, welcome to CCLive. My name is Kiki and this video is the final part of a tutorial series where I'm modelling some custom content for the character Lara Croft from Shadow of the Tomb Raider in stages. In this video I'm working on the outfit. So for this final part I'll be creating the necklace, which I am meshing right now in Blender and using a background image, and I'm box modelling around it. I won't just be creating the necklace, I'll be creating other things as well. But this is what I'm starting with, because there's still quite a couple of accessories to make for her, or I guess this is a piece of jewellery. And I suppose for just the pendant, it is having quite a lot of faces. Off screen I will be deleting some faces, but still, like for a sim mesh, it's still quite a lot. So I've just copied the pendant over and subdivided it quite a lot of times to get a high detail, so I can create a cavity map of that one. So I'm just baking that right now. I've just skipped the unwrapping process just because it's rather tedious and long, even if it's a rather simple shape like this. So that's the cavity map from the high poly, and I'll be using that to eventually create a texture for the low poly. And I've just put the background image back in because I deleted it, so I can copy over the color. And here I was like, oh, but I'm on texture mode, why can't I see anything? And it's because I deleted the lamp at the beginning, and I've never really ever done a custom light setup, so I don't really know anything about that. But I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can bake a render from it. So I wanted to do the diffuse first, but here I thought I'd try doing the render, and this is the texture, the diffuse texture. But before that was just like and here again, the render of it. So yeah, obviously it doesn't look that great because, you know, there's so much more customization that you can do with the light setup, with the texture setup. But it was, I've never done that before, so it was fun for me to just explore for a second. I won't be using the render, the baked render, but I will be using the cavity map and just the diffuse. And here I've just imported from the Sims 4 Studio a necklace. I've deleted the pendant, and now I'm adding the pendant that I just created onto it. And with that I also had to weight paint it, and I didn't have to UV unwrap one. UV map one, unwrap it, because the pendant, otherwise the pendant will deform, because I had done that initially, but when you look at the Sims, like the EA texture of a necklace itself, then they haven't actually unwrapped the pendant part of it, just the necklace that goes around the neck, because obviously that has to be slider compatible. And here I'm just working on the texture in Photoshop, because I'm just a lot more comfortable in Photoshop when it comes to texturizing, and I'm trying to create that sort of jade look. Now you can do all of that in Blender. I've just never worked with that sort of thing before, so I'm not quite that comfortable with it as I am in Photoshop. So here I'm just testing what the texture looks like in Blender. So, and also moving the UV map over the texture. So there we are. Well, that's what it looks like in Blender, obviously. That's not, it will look slightly different in game because then you have the lighting and everything. And here I'm just, that is the specular of the original necklace that I exported from the Sims 4 Studio. And right now I'm just sort of copying that color and the style of that map to sort of copy over the specularity of that original EA item. And this is just the mask for it. And here I tried to put a bit of diversity in the map itself, because in the mask, the white means it will affect the specularity and black means it will not. And I was kind of hoping to sort of, you know how stone is sometimes shinier in certain places and not as shiny in other places. I was trying to do that, but you can't actually see it. The item is actually too small to tell that sort of detail. But here we are in game, just a quick test to see what the necklace looked like. I am really happy with the result. That is exactly what I wanted it to look like. That never happens in my life. And here I've just Frankenmeshed 3 separate items, meshes of clothing meshes, and I've just uploaded it or imported it into the Sims 4 Studio as well, and it looks very funky because the original texture is still on top of it. But I've just done that so that mid creating the texture I can upload it in the Sims 4 Studio and actually see what it will look like. But yeah, for now that looks really silly with the negligee texture over the clothing texture. So it's created from 3 separate items. It's the trousers from Jungle Adventure, just a simple, oh, I've forgotten the name for that. Still not strap top, or is it? Just a top without sleeves. And then a t-shirt as well, and I'm using the texture from the t-shirt that I'm just adjusting slightly to match the outfit of Laura. So I just got rid of the logo, they're making the sleeves, or well, they're not technically sleeves I guess, but the top of the shoulders there a bit of a darker blue, and adding some other detail of the top onto the texture. And now I'm just creating a line that I'm going to copy over many times. And what this will do eventually, once it covers the entire top, is give it a ribbed look. And if you look up really close, well, if you zoom in really close on the original top from Lara, it is ribbed as well. That's why I thought it was quite cool to have that tiny little detail in there. So the top texture is slightly different, so I'm just having to create a different bottom to it now because I had to cut the other one off. Because it's a Frankenmesh, I'm having to shuffle the UVs around a little bit. And here, so what I'm trying to do, the top, so the, the bottom top, the undershirt, kind of peeks out from below the top. And in Blender, I've kind of pulled the mesh of the top down so I could create this in the texture itself, but it will look straight on the mesh like that. And then it looks like the undershirt is peeking through, even though that is the same mesh. But because that was right on the seam, it was a little bit difficult to line that up. But here I've just in Blender created a line that I could use as a guide in Photoshop, because as you could see from my previous attempt where I just tried to eyeball it, that didn't work. But with this guideline it does actually look all right. So here I'm just testing it in the Sims 4 Studio and I'm happy with that. So continuing on. So I'm using so these trousers from Jungle Adventure come with a pouch, and I'm going to use the pouch as a holster, which means it won't look 100% accurate as it was in game, but it will save me a lot of work of having to model one myself. So I'll just adjust this one slightly to still have that idea of the holster with the is it a gun? Is it a pistol? I'm not very world wise when it comes to weapons, to be honest. You could hear that from my previous video of me trying to explain archery. Bow shooting. So here I'm just adjusting the texture for the shoes, which won't be part of the actual body mesh outfit. They will be separate shoes. So you'll have to equip the clothes and then the shoes separately, and they will just be in the boots category, where these original mesh are usually placed. I tried to make that sentence grammatically correct as I was going, but it was impossible. I started it wrong. And these gloves as well, I think they are actually from Seasons. They're not 100% accurate to... So I haven't created this mesh from scrap, but it will look close enough and it will give the idea. So I'm happy with that. There we go, that lines up. I'm just making sure, because I adjusted the mesh a tiny wee bit, that there are no gaps in the seams there. And here I'm just adjusting the pouch to look a bit more like a holster. And then I've also appended the blaster that I created for Kira from Star Wars, Solo Star Wars Story. I'm just going to repurpose that. That can be Lara as well. Lara's gun. Oh gosh, could you imagine a crossover between those two? I don't think I'd pay to see that though. If Lara Croft would suddenly appear in the Star Wars universe, or vice versa. But for this, it works. I'm giving her a blaster, technically a gun. So here I'm combining the texture, just making sure that nothing is overlapping. The texture for the necklace was actually sort of kind of overlapping, but I don't know how that works in game, but you can't actually see anything. You can't see the sole of the shoe on the necklace or the necklace on the sole of the shoe, so it's fine. It's okay. So here I'm just uploading the texture in Blender to check out, to see what it looks like, a little mid check, and now I'm continuing to go for a different swatch for the texture, just with some tears in the t-shirt for where the panther leopard thingy cat attacked her. I think I looked it up on my previous video. I think it was leopards. No, panther is a collective name for both leopards and... No, I don't remember what it was. Google, pausing the video. So, looked it up. Panther is a collective name that also includes leopards and jaguars live in South America and leopards live in Africa, Asia, China. So it's a jaguar that attacked her. It's a jaguar that attacked her because the game takes place in South America. Anyway, back to the project. Right now I'm creating the specular map, and I'm just graying out all the areas that I want to have some form of specularity, not a really strong specularity, but some. Right now it looks like I'm making everything the same type of gray, but I put it on different layers so I can make one selection a little bit darker, which I'm doing right now. And then the rest of the outfit doesn't need to be specular. And these are actually the masks that I've exported from the game itself. So I'm just adjusting the top slightly to match and the trousers to match my UV map, because I did adjust that a tiny bit as I was Frankenmashing. And then I'm combining these, and I'm just hoping that because I got them from the Sims 4 studio, that will be correct. I already know the answer. I already know the outcome. It was. Now I'm modeling, meshing the radio, and that is the final accessory. Ha 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 ha! That is the final accessory that I still needed to create for Lara. So during the game, the radio picks up chatter from either hostiles, so her enemies, or basically the soldiers who are trying to kill her constantly, or from Jonah, so friendly chatter, or I think Jonah hangs out with Abby as well. She's on the radio sometimes. And then if it's hostiles, it glows red, and if it's friendly chatter, it glows blue. I don't know how a radio would do that in real life, but it's a game. In the texture, I will be creating the red glow, like hostiles are on the radio. And I'm actually going to create a, what is that map called again? Emissions map. So it actually does glow. It will glow. But right now I'm still working on the texture. No, on the mesh. Oh gosh. On the mesh, and I will be doing the same thing as I did with the necklace, is that I'll be modeling a low poly, and then I'm gonna throw a subsurf. Well, it already has a subsurf on there right now, but I'm going to up the ante for the subsurf for the duplicate, so I can use that one to bake a cavity map, which will just look a lot smoother. A more normal workflow, I guess, would be that you would you know, model a high poly mesh and then you would retopologize a low poly from that. But I don't really like retopologizing, or even though in this case it probably would have been a very easy one. I don't like it. I'm not very good at it. So what I'm doing is I'm just creating a low poly, make a copy, subdivide the SHIT out of it, and then bake the maps from that. Which I'm doing right now. Not all the detail is on there yet. I'm going to create the rest of the detail in Photoshop itself. Again, you would be able to actually use the paint options in Blender itself, but because I'm not very comfortable with them and I feel very much at home in Photoshop, I'm going to take it to Photoshop instead. Oh yes, I was going to say, so right now I'm drawing the logo or brand on there. The in-game radio actually doesn't have a brand because I did check that later on, probably copyright reasons or whatever. This is probably a picture of somebody's cosplay radio, and that used an existing radio that just very much looked like the in-game radio to create their costume. So I will be deleting that brand name. So here I'm creating the gaps that the sound comes from. The speaker behind there is the speaker, I guess. I was actually struggling quite a lot to get that to work. Eventually I went with this and just copied one side over to the other. I guess I could have used skew, but I'm not sure if that would have worked either. So it was a lot of manual faffing about in the end. And now just some final logos and details on top of it. And that is the texture for the radio done. Well, after I crunch it up a bit. So I initially wanted to add the radio to the outfit, but then I realized that wasn't going to work because it's actually kind of attached to the rope, or the rope is hanging over the radio. So I added it onto the accessories. So there will be a new download file for the accessories. If you'd already downloaded it before, this is the updated version. And I also created a strap in the accessories that goes over her shoulder to hold the quiver in place. But that is just a flat texture. There's not actually a mesh attached to it. I did give it a normal map, but unfortunately that didn't work as I had hoped in game. Now I'm just weight transferring the weight from the outfit onto the radio, and I'm just deleting all of the vertex groups that have no weight assigned to it. And then as you can see, my weight transfer is a bit blocky, so I'm just using the blur brush to blur everything out. You can see on the left there that I've created a strap for it that actually goes over her shoulder. I've zoomed in so far that you can't see it at the moment. So now I'm creating the emissions map, and so I've selected the screen itself, but now I've also selected a part a bit of a fall off because the emission maps only makes a part of the texture go lighter and darker. It doesn't actually give a shine to it. So by doing this, by adding a fall off to the emissions map, it will actually look like it's lighting up and affecting the texture surrounding it as well. And now I'm creating the normal map for the outfit itself. So now for the fabric that by the knees, I'm creating a bit of a texture just to differentiate between the fabric of the rest of the trousers and the bits by the knee, the reinforcements at the knee. And with the specular and the normal map, that will actually look really nice. That's not in the original outfit. I'm just being extra because I can. So now I've taken that, well, basically a height map to that online website. And I've uploaded that into Photoshop, and now I'm copying the red channel to the alpha and the green channel to the blue and the red, and saving that as a DDS file, and that is the normal map done. So here we are in game. As by the knees, you can see that texture that I created on top of the knees in the normal and the specular. Looks very nice. Well, I think it just looks cool because it looks different. And then at the straps, you cannot see the normal map that I created for it. Actually, the normal map of the top is showing through that. That's a bit unfortunate. Oh well, I learned from that. And ta-da! Our flashing radio. How cool is that?
No visual of craft yet. I repeat, no visual of craft yet.
So there are different variations to the outfit. Here we have just the outfit as it comes without any grunge or grime. Here it is with the accessories equipped. And then here I've created a swatch for both the shoes, the accessories and the outfit with a bit of mud and camouflage. And here is it with the tears and blood and scratches with the accessories as well. And here's the dirty version of that one. So this was the final video of the creation of Lara Croft for The Sims 4. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so very much for watching. Enjoy the showcase and see you next time. Bye bye!